Welcome back, guys. Today we're in Cambria with Jeff Gray. He's going to show us his bikes and all his cool toys.
How you doing? Welcome to my shop. This is a Trophy Boy special. It's a 50 Panhead. It's built in the style of what I consider to be the 80s outlaw from the Bay Area, with a narrow glides and a disc brakes, which is something that we did. I got my first Harley in 1980. And basically in the early 80s, this is a style bike that we were riding in Northern California. It's pretty much straightforward outlaw bike, high mids. Story goes that my wife had bought me this motor, actually had bought me a bike as a gift, and I tore it apart, and all I kept was the motor, the tranny, and the oil bag. And I spent a couple years collecting parts, and this is like the second bike in this style that I built. You know, it's a Paco frame, which I love. Paco frames. They're good, they're solid, they're reliable. It's no up, no out, 30-degree neck. It's 2 over 35 millimeter narrow glide dual disc, and it's got main drive high mids on it. Scotty's Invader mags is the old guy who was building mags. He might even be passed away. I had him build me the mags for disc brakes, which comes as reminiscence from being in the Bay Area and splitting lanes. Ride the shit out of it. Now that I live here on the coast, it's the perfect blend for ripping up Highway 1 and through the mountains, and I love it.
What's the name of the bike?
Trophy Boy Special. And it comes from the fact that, you know, it's jokingly, I'm the worst trophy husband ever because I've always had a job. My wife has really provided an opportunity the last 20 years, 21 years for me to be able to explore my creative side. This is my art. And Joel from Lancaster, he actually did the paint job. Most of the time I just spray can stuff, but this was a painted job, and love it. I did get hit by a car on it once and didn't scratch paint at all.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Got hit in an intersection 11 o'clock at night. Handcraft choppers out of Germany. Did the gas cap. My friend Scott Stocking, this is an elephant fist. He gifted me the skull, which I'm not really a big skull guy, but I love that detail. This is like a stone, and called elephant fist, elephant stone. And you know, I mean, what can you go? Pro clutch. You'll kind of notice a theme on my bike and my other bike is that when I find stuff that works, I tend to duplicate it, just because if you got multiple bikes, I think you should have the same stuff on it. It just makes it easier. You know, Super E carburetors. I'm a big fan of Super E carburetors. All my friends want to run Linkerts, but I know Super E's, so that's what I work on. They're pretty available. You can, anybody, any year, Harley's gonna have a Super E in their garage in case you're traveling and you break down.
Where'd you get this?
That's some guy off of Instagram. He makes these little enricher knobs, you know. So
super detail.
yeah,
That's
you know, something a little different. These risers are a friend of mine, Jesse Joe Lackey. He built me these risers. They're 12-inch risers. And what happened was this whole bar combination is actually my good friend Spade George. If you ever look at his bike, his Desperado, he has kind of the same setup. And so I really wanted to duplicate that. So I had my friend build me these risers. What people don't realize is that I wanted it to be an extension of the front end. And so these risers are actually 35 millimeters in diameter. They're the same size diameter as the front tubes. And because he didn't have a mill that would go tall enough, he ended up having to cut the bolt holes for the caps on a lathe. And so I only have a single bolt, which is kind of a dilemma because you have to drill through the handlebars, which doesn't give you much adjustment. So you got to kind of find your spot and then drill it. This is a 1-inch DOM tubing, so it's really high strength, and it's just got a good it's got a good feel. I mean, I honestly, I just love this stance right here. This is, to me, compact and tight and ready to roll. You know, it's outlaw bike, you know.
This was for Bay Area pretty much.
Yeah, Bay Area. That's where I was from, Redwood City. So, you know, splitting lanes during commute traffic, you know, this was the bike. And it's kind of fun, you know, when you come up on another guy on a Harley, and he's kind of wallowing around, and you know, your hands shift, you're splitting lanes and suicide shifting, and you're all nice and tight. Man, I don't know. It's kind of makes you feel badass. Yeah.
No, I love the stance.
Yeah.
How about the sissy bar?
Sissy bars, you know what? So sissy bars are my nemesis. If you were to look at my scrap pile, you would find a lot of scrap sissy bars. This actually is a lowbrow one. I had this really nice short sissy bar on here that I built, and it was painstaking for me because when I look at a sissy bar, if it's not perfect, it just screws me up, and I can't unsee the imperfection of it. But when I got in a wreck, when I got hit by a truck, I got hit right here. And the only thing that I could not do was salvage my sissy bar. So this was just a lowbrow one, and it's been functional. I added a center plate to it. I have a little rack for when I travel. I have a rack that goes on the back right here so I can carry a gas bottle. You know, it just works out. Yeah. But this bike was really meant to have a short sissy bar, which I guess this year I'll probably build another one. The Invader mags are steel. They add some weight to the bike. I'm a firm believer that, you know, you should use the stuff that works. So this is a 4-piston caliper off of like a 2000 up Harley. The guy from Main Drive, he provides all this stuff when you buy these setups. These setups are badass. Of course, you know, nothing works off the shelf. If you looked at a set of Main Drive pedals, you'll notice that they have a little dog leg, but I've narrowed these down. And so I took the pedals and I put them in a press and I flattened them out, and I cut off probably 2.5 inches, 3 inches on each side on these pegs. So the idea is to get it as narrow as possible. Narrow. These are old vintage filters. I love them. These filter housings were sold aftermarket back in the 70s or in the 80s. And they take a drop-in filter from a shovel head, from like a FX or FL shovel head. I'm a firm believer, oil filters, air filters, you know, it's a lot of money in these motors. And so if you can filter the oil and you can filter the air, then hopefully you can get a few more miles out of them.
I like that you still got the kind of highway pegs out here too, huh?
Yeah, you have to be able to stretch, you know, especially at 64. My knees get a little sore, so you know, you just got to be able to have some other little spot. But you know, you notice I just made them as tight as I could. You know, I got them in nice and tight, and you get creative. You know, you get creative about how you build stuff.
Yeah, this is art pretty much. You know, that's cool. I like a little message right there too.
Yeah. Thanks, Honey Bunny. That's my wife. I call her Honey Bunny. Basically, you know, she paid for everything on this bike, and you know, it broke her heart when I tore apart the donor bike. And for a long time, she'd come out and she would really be heartbroken that I tore apart this bike that she bought for me. So finally, one day I had it in me. I said, "Baby," I said, "if I was Picasso and you were my wife, would you rather buy me a canvas and the paints to paint what's in my mind, or would you buy me a Rembrandt?" And it was that point that she realized that, you know, that tearing apart the bike that she bought me was actually the right thing, and here we are.
Yeah, you kept the heart of it, you know?
Yeah, I kept the heart of it. But I had a vision.
It looks good.
Yeah. This bike I collected parts for a couple years for. My other bike I collected parts for 4.5 years. And you know, when you know stuff like, you want a pro clutch, and that's $1,200. So you save your money and you buy a pro clutch and you stick it on the shelf, and then you find the next big ticket item that you want, and you get that done. You put it on the shelf, and you just keep doing that until eventually, you know, sometimes it takes a year. Sometimes on my other bike, it took me 4.5 years of just collecting all the big stuff in order to get to a point where it was ready to build. So this was a motor on a trade, and it's probably going to be the last bike that I build. And it's, I think I'm going to use every old used part that I have to build it. You know, I got a couple different frames, and I got a bunch of old rusty spoke rims. I'm just going to build a beater, and then I'm going to send that back to my son so that he has, because eventually my son's inheriting all this stuff. None of this stuff I'll sell.
Does he live here in California, or?
No, he lives in Buffalo, New York. He's a firefighter for the city of Buffalo. I used to do this in a 10 by 10 wood shed in Redwood City. Wow. I used to build bikes and that's what got me hooked on social media. Is I'd be hanging out waiting to see if there was a fire after welding and grinding in a tough shed. So I'd be hanging out and make sure I didn't go to bed and have a fire. And so I would be on social media while I was waiting to see if there's any smoldering smoke.
You want to show us the Trophy Boy sticker?
The Trophy Boy is because you know, my wife, like I said, my wife was very successful consultant, and as a result, I got to keep a lot of my paycheck. So I was kind of like a trophy husband. I was traveling, and I told the guy I was that I was a trophy husband, and he asked me how, and I jokingly said because I had a big penis. And that prompted me to, you know, on the rest of my ride to think about stupid shit. And so I had a friend of mine that was an artist draw me this Trophy Boy sticker. I call this the dick sticker. And that's my wife's hand with a big diamond ring. And it was just kind of a joke. And I thought, well, it's probably a little inappropriate for a t-shirt. And so I had this Trophy Boy sticker built or drawn. And these were the stickers I was giving out. But then at the end, everybody wanted the dick stickers. And so I've gone through a couple hundred, and you know,
you still have them for sale?
No, I just give them away. And yeah, so that's it. You know, that's where the Trophy Boy came from.
Awesome.
My beautiful wife. An old CFO of a company that I worked for. This was his wife's father's bike that he made into a Street Fighter style with a GSXR frame. It's a 78 KZ 650, and he wants to I'm decommissioning it so that it can be displayed on the 3rd floor of their house in Balboa Island.
Oh, crazy!
So it was all, you know, it was all chalky. So I've been cleaning. I've been acid washing the motor and polishing the cases. And I'm blowing the whole bike apart so that I can get the frame. I can get the frame powder coated. I've cleaned all the brake system out. It has mineral oil in there to keep it moist, but if it leaks, it won't. You know, it's going into a very expensive house. But it's basically, I'm just setting this bike up to be on display for the rest of its life. It'll probably never be ran unless somebody gets it in 20 or 30 years. But I'm setting it up so that within a week it could be ran. Like, all the wiring will be good, and it'll be, you know, it'll be functional. I'm just so I'm in the process of decommissioning it for. I'm getting paid to do it, but it's kind of a favor, you know.
Gotcha.
So, yeah.
Cool.
Not my style.
Let's talk about your other pan.
Yeah, Superlicious.
Superlicious.
A lot of my friends, every time I built a bike, I've built probably 3 of the outlaw style bikes, and everybody said, oh, look, it's just another bike like the last bike. I was in San Leandro buying some parts from a guy, and this was an original Arlen Ness 7/8 tubed. It was a digger frame. It used to have this long, straight frame here. And anyways, the guy I saw him buying the Morse mags. He had it, so I ended up buying all these parts. Well, when I got home, what I didn't realize is over in the corner, there was an oil bag that I grabbed, and what I didn't realize is this is the original oil bag for the frame. I decided I was going to build a long bike. I wanted a gooseneck chopper with a girder front end. This is a 1970s P&P girder. And my friend Dalton Walker had built a Star mag in the Invader style for a guy back in Long Island. And I'd asked him if he would build one for me, and he says, yeah, as long as you could use square tube. So this is probably only 2 in the United States that he ever built. And it's set up, if you look, it's actually, because I like to run disc brakes, it's actually set up to run a disc brake over here. But after 3 or 4 years of pushing it around, I realized that it was too nice, just too nice to cover. So I got a 4-piston Sproter from HHI, Hog Halters Incorporated. And I tell you what, that thing stopped. This was 4.5 years of collecting parts. And this was 4.5 years of having a vision and going through the process of finding parts, chroming parts, and just really staying true to like a 70 style chopper. But more importantly, it was just, for me, it was about angles. I've never had a long bike in my entire life. And what's interesting is this bike was a roller for so long that I had taken a pair of risers, and I took an old pair of bent, somebody had given me a pair of ape hangers that were bent, and I cut it, and I had welded this piece through here and had this bend here, and then I took and I welded it here, and I had these bars, and I pushed it around, and when it came time to actually get handlebars, I could no longer unsee the shape. And so Stefan, Zombie Performance, that dude, I'm telling you what, I never even talked to him on the phone. I just emailed him, and I told him I had an idea, and he said, give me some sketches. I actually gave him some dimension drawings, and the dude built me these bars in like a week and a half.
Wow.
And I mean, they are everything that I wanted, as far as a tight bend, which I didn't think I was going to be able to get, how it comes up and merges together, because I wanted the bars. The bars needed to be together in order to, to come around, and he nailed it. My friend Dalton built both the rims, and he built me the tank. I need one more. I need a bigger tank. I'm going to build a tank that's an inch wider on each side and about 1.5 inches taller, because this is only 1.3, and I need it to be, like 1.6, 1.8, probably 1.8.
What's the range?
40 miles. It's a gas station whore. It's like people say, where are we going? I'm like, to the next gas station. In order for me to go from Cambria to Ventura to Chopper Fest, it was 5 gas stops for 160 miles.
Wow.
But I did get second place in chopper class, my first show on this bike.
Wow.
So I was pretty impressed with that. Not that I was really going for any awards, because, I'm just a guy, I'm nobody, I'm really nobody famous. And, I do this stuff for me. Well, no, come on, we do it because, we like people to appreciate what we build, and,
Yeah.
there's no doubt.
What's that button right here?
So this button, I don't really want to have to leg. I don't want to have to use my legs or my clutch on a hill. And so what I did is I actually incorporated a line lock from drag racing, from Summit. There's a line lock down here, and it's a 12-volt blocking valve that's buried underneath here. And what it does is when the bike is running, I'm able to put the brake on, hit the button, and then when I release, the button holds pressure in the caliper, so I have a holding brake while I'm using my foot clutch, because I have a suicide shift. And that way, if I'm going downhill or uphill, I can just hold my brake, and then I got a free clutch foot to use that. So it's just a little hidden gem that, I think there's a guy in Australia that's selling some kit. It's all digital and shit, but you don't need all that. And my biggest concern was that whether or not I was going to be able to use a 12 volt, if there was enough amperage with it running a magneto. But I have a battery eliminator, and that gives me enough voltage to do what I'm doing without, because there's no battery on this bike. So
Gotcha.
Arlen Ness didn't leave no room for batteries. But I love it. And it's got a good sound. I don't know. Maybe we get lucky today, huh? What do you think? it's a runner.
Sounds good. Sounds healthy.
Duncan Keller built the motor. So,
Oh, San Jose.
yeah. Yeah, it's just a, 74-inch pan. It's a 51.
The same guy that makes the...
Yeah, handcraft choppers. He remints these coins.
Does he still make them?
Yeah, he's on Instagram.
Cool. I got to check him out.
I wanted a mid-control, right? So it started over here, and don't ask me why. But this brake assembly, which I had in my pile of stuff, is actually original V-twin, and it's V-twin like LA because it had the little V-twin logo made in USA. And I don't really care, but I wanted it tucked in. This bike had no mounting, no mounts whatsoever. I don't think this bike ever had any peg mounts on it. And so I modified the pedal to get everything in as tight as I could. And then I made all this mount here for the brake assembly and welded my mounts on for the frame to get it all tight. Of course, it took a couple tries because I had it so close. The first iteration, I couldn't get the cap off. I built it with the master cylinder off, and I went to put the cap on. I'm like, oh, Jesus. So I had to make this peg. Well, once I got this located, I had to figure out how to get the clutch and the pedal equal on the other side. And, it's like, so I couldn't really figure out. So I ended up doing like a FX, like a Dyna style, where this here bolts on to here. And then actually, if you notice, this was like a main drive pedal, extra main drive pedal I had from another mid set. And I modified it, and I built it so basically this has a welded shaft because this needs to be replaceable. And on this shaft collar, I welded it, and then I machined a flat spot so that the round stock that this goes in and bolts back here can't spin down. And that's how I located my other peg, because that's what happens when you're building custom stuff.
Yeah.
And again, these are, I probably took about 1.5 inches off of these pegs, narrowing them down. They're cherry pegs from Japan. And more chrome than I'll ever do again. Of course, you got the CT Newman headlight. That guy's awesome. I got really lucky. This is the original 1969. They used a rear shock from like a 1969 CL Honda. Yeah. And this thing, I tore it apart to have all these parts re-chromed, but I was lucky because this thing was in such good shape that when I cleaned it up, the body of the shock was still like new. Wow. All this is the original finish on it. I just chromed all the springs and the caps and the adjuster. Again, you have to understand that when it comes to struts and sissy bars, there's a pain. And you'll notice that this is the only, if you've seen any of my bikes, you'll notice this is the only bike where the tail light is up on the fender. Everything else is all side mounts, right? And so I'm pretty happy. I built this strut. These standoffs were already on the frame originally, so I utilized them. And so I'm pretty happy with the way it came out. At the moment, I hit a pothole and I bent my rim, so that's why this tire's a little close right here. That's the shit that I can't unsee. I know it's like, it's just crazy, but I got a little high spot here, so it's rubbing. Oh. So, but in order to straighten the rim, my friend Dalton, he puts them on a truing stand and he uses heat to pull the metal. And that's how these tires are trued. And so, it's a lot of money for chrome. And I've just been kind of riding with a little bit of a wobble. But now that I'm not really showing the bike, I'm just going to ride the piss out of it, It's time. Again, same oil filter. Just because they work, having these oil lines made are nutty. I welded all these fittings on, all these JIC weldings. These were just straight tubes coming out of this oil bag, and I welded all the JIC fittings to do the lines, which was a lot of labor. You had to go down and actually just make them by hand right there on the spot in the back of the truck. This P&P girder was supposed to be pulled back 10 degrees. That's what these holes are. This is at 10 degrees. But unfortunately, when I put the bike together, I had it in the front holes, which kind of pulled it up and made it a little bit taller and not as flat. And that was my original vision. But the rake and trail was like, my rake and trail was like 6 3/4. So it was way too heavy on the front end. It was just flopping, and by pulling it back 10 degrees, I'm actually at a 2-inch rake and trail now, so it makes it a little twitchy. And so that's kind of the only downside. But, you know, I love girders. Everybody runs springers. To me, this just looks like a 70s chopper, you know?
Do you like orange or something?
No, you know, I am older and I am kind of colorblind. That's tangerine and this is cinnamon. So this is actually all powder coat. It's not even paint. So they do the color and then they come back and then it goes in the oven the second time and they shoot this microflake clear. Yeah. And that's what gives us this look. And so the original thing was supposed to have this 70s panel, you know, fenders and stuff, and with just a little bit of the frame color. When my friend and I went to go, who's a painter, we went to go get the paint matched, they couldn't match this color 100%, and he wanted $700 for a quart of paint. Crazy. That wasn't even gonna be 100% match. And my friend said, look, where this thing lands on the frame, if it's just close, then it's gonna look like we missed the mark. Gotcha. So unless I do like a black frame, you know, so I kind of boxed myself in the corner. So, and I was kind of out of money. So it was $125 to powder coat the tank and the fender the same color, and it's all matching, and you know, it's powder coat. Yeah, so I don't have to worry about it. And eventually I'll probably paint it, but you know, that's down the road. Yeah. I love it. This is the stuff that when you get in the weeds, you're gonna learn this when you start building a car and you get into this details, this stupid shit, okay? This is something nobody notices. I didn't want to use tie wraps on the wires, okay? And so I ended up braiding all this cloth wire. And if you look underneath here, in my main wire right here, all this is braided. Like I fucking sat here wiring my bike and braiding my wires, which is all great until you have a problem, and then you gotta, you know, because it's gotta all come undone. It's true. But yeah, it's like, but I mean, like literally, like this is all braided so that I wouldn't have to have a tie wrap. I mean, the idea was to not tie wrap anything to the frame, and you know, and I'm a big believer that if you want to ride a bike, and I don't just show them, I like to ride, that things need to be relaxed, right? You don't build a Harley that has pressure points because the vibration will break stuff. So you always make it so it's relaxed. Eventually, because I'm getting older, my plan in my car, which we'll get to, is my car is going to have a receiver hitch that comes out the back window, and I'm building a gooseneck trailer on airbags to haul my bike behind. Oh, nice. So it'd be like a Revell 3-in-1 when you bought model cars, and you always look for that one where there was like a car and a boat, or a car and a trailer, or another car and a dragster. Yeah.
Any tips for like the younger generation getting into bikes?
You know, yeah, the first thing is don't do drugs. If you don't do drugs, you'll have money to spend on this bullshit, you know, because I don't know how one can afford the other, but no, you know, the thing is you start by chopping up your bicycles. I mean, you know, when I was growing up, we had bicycles and we cut our forks and we modified our bicycles, and then we got go-karts and mini bikes, and hopefully you have some adults that'll help support that. And if not, then just find somebody that's into it, that's got time to be a mentor, you know. And if you find somebody that is willing to mentor you, then respect their time and show up when you're going to say you're going to show up, and do what you're going to do, and just listen, right? And
also be patient, right? Because
yeah,
like
you gotta
said,
be patient.
It took you years to get.
There's 4.5. So I have a saying. So, and I got this from Mark from Hot Rod Havoc, is one thing a day. So if you have a project, if you do just one thing a day. So for 4.5 years, I collected parts, and then for 11.5 months, I built this bike, and I did one thing a day. If that meant that I came out to the shop and I sat down and I did a punch list of things that I needed to do or things I needed to buy, bolt size or whatever, that counted as one thing. And sometimes that was 5 minutes, and sometimes that turned into 5 hours. Sometimes that one thing turned into 4 things. But if you just come out and do one thing a day, one little thing a day, it keeps you engaged in a project, and it will move forward and it'll be done. And your mind is always, for me, I wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning with this shit on my mind, and when I go to bed, it's on my mind, and it's just what I love to do, you know. So
awesome tips. Thank you.
that's my story.